But I think the development of full artificial intelligence will spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
With the rockets or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. They were too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
So you said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
911, what's your emergency? I need help, please help me!
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1, 0,
self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio.
Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness.
Well, good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And of course, 88.4 FM, Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, we're going back to the past. Now, there's a lot of things in play when we're talking about hyperreality. And this is one of the things that's always on my mind because people believe a lot of diverse things. Okay? This goes back culturally. This is, again, we talk about this all the time. But there's an interesting part of this kind of recently in the last 50 years or so that really sticks in my craw as part of this discussion. And it seems as if the Big P phenomenon, this thing, whatever this is, it seems as if it comes and goes from the zeitgeist, as if we're battling it somehow, as if the idea itself of extrasensory perception, of psi abilities, of ghosts, or even aliens, it comes and it goes. It's a really strange thing. And I was kind of thinking about it through the lens of history, at least, during my lifetime. I can't speak to, I'm not that old. I mean, I'm an old man now, but I'm not that old. So it's one of those things where I was like, okay, how come when I was like 10, I remembered, or younger than that, maybe let's say 6, I remembered finding books all over the house, and maybe my family were weirdos, but I'm talking about my grandma's house. This is in some California, Central California somewhere. We'll change the names and anonymize the place. But basically, there was, books of the Bermuda Triangle. There was, like just weird stuff kind of hanging around and people reading these things. And, I didn't think anything of it. I really didn't think, it was normal, right? Like high strangeness is sort of a normal part of like the late 70s or the early 80s. But then things changed. Things weren't exactly as they seemed to be, almost as if that satanic panic had found a way to kind of battle it off. And anyway, so let me read this. This is probably better to just read this instead of ramble on, but here you go. So I want you to think back to a time you probably don't remember. Or maybe you do, if you're old enough, the 1970s. Not the version you've seen in period pieces, not the aesthetic, the actual texture of what it felt like to live in that decade. UFOs were on the nightly news. Not as jokes, not as human interest pieces to fill the last 2 minutes, as news. Walter Cronkite talking about sightings over Missouri, serious journalists asking questions about what the Air Force knew and wasn't telling us. You guys remember the aftermath of the Project Blue Book days, of course. In 1973, 2 shipyard workers in Pascagoula, Mississippi, told police they had been taken aboard a craft by beings with no eyes and crab-like claws. The sheriff didn't laugh at them. He left them alone in a room with a hidden recorder, hoping to catch them breaking character, admitting the hoax. They didn't. They prayed. They wept. The recording still exists. In 1975, Travis Walton disappeared from an Arizona logging site in front of 6 witnesses who all passed polygraphs. 5 days later, he reappeared with a story about being taken aboard something, a flying saucer perhaps. The case made national headlines. Movies got made. People argued about it at dinner tables across America. Cattle were turning up mutilated across the heartland. Surgical precision. No blood at the scene. No tracks. The FBI eventually opened a file. They never closed it with a proper explanation. The government, our government, was funding a program at Stanford Research Institute to develop psychic spies, remote viewers who could see Soviet military installations with their minds. This wasn't just conspiracy theory. This was a budget line item. Uri Geller bent spoons on national television, and physicists at respected institutions argued about whether it was real. Not talk show physicists, working scientists publishing papers. Bigfoot, the Patterson-Gimlin film, played everywhere. Bigfoot wasn't a punchline then, or yet. It was a question. Reasonable people could disagree about what was walking through that clearing in 1967, but nobody thought you were crazy for taking it seriously. Ouija boards outsold Monopoly. Let that sink in. The best-selling board game in America for 3 consecutive years was a tool for talking to the dead. Nobody seemed to think it was strange. Yeah. So basically, high strangeness wasn't something you had to seek out in specialized magazines or late-night radio. It was just there. It was part of the cultural wallpaper. Your parents talked about it. Your teachers had opinions. The weird was woven into the fabric of everyday American life. And here's my point. Then it stopped. Not all at once. It's hard to pinpoint the exact moment, but somewhere in the early 80s, a door closed. A CSI-COP launched its crusade. This is actually the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry is what it's called these days. That's the, yep, I just read that. So basically, investigation into the claims of the paranormal. And yeah, they were around for 50 years, basically, or nearly 50 years. Now, the weird part about this is this guy named James Randi started waving his $1 million challenge at anyone who claimed abilities beyond the ordinary. You guys remember this? The satanic panic erupted and then collapsed. And in its collapse, it poisoned the well for anyone trying to talk about hidden realities. Then the X-Files comes along in the 90s. And that's when you knew it was really over, because the weird had been moved into fiction. It was entertainment now, something to enjoy for an hour on Sunday night before returning to consensus reality on Monday morning. The truth was out there, but only on Fox, and only until the commercial break. By the 2000s, believing in UFOs was social suicide. Bigfoot sold beef jerky, ghost hunters were reality TV clowns nobody took seriously. The strange had been so thoroughly banished from respectable conversation that even bringing it up required layers of ironic distance. You had to signal that you knew it was silly before you could even discuss it. That's 40 years of exile, 40 years in the wilderness, 40 years where the weird lived only in the margins, in the places where the official reality couldn't reach. And now a Pentagon official sits before Congress and uses the phrase non-human intelligence, like it's a normal thing to say. Navy pilots go on 60 Minutes describing objects that moved in ways that broke physics, and nobody laughs. Nobody calls them crazy. The New York Times runs stories about secret government UFO programs, and the world just absorbs it. Skinwalker Ranch has a primetime television show on the History Channel. Simulation theory is dinner party conversation among tech executives. Podcasts about the paranormal, hey, shout out, pull bigger audiences than most cable news programs. And the strange came back. And it came back different. It's not lurking in the margins anymore. It's wearing a suit. It's testifying under oath. It's demanding to be taken seriously by the very institutions that spent 4 decades pretending it didn't exist. So what happened? What happened? And that's the question we're going to sit with tonight. Not just what's happening now with disclosure, with these hearings, with the steady drip of official acknowledgement, but what happened before? What happened in the 1970s that made the weird so present, so unavoidable, so woven into daily life? And what happened after that made it retreat for 40 years? Did we do something to push it away? Did we stop doing something that had been keeping a door open? Did skepticism actually work in some way we didn't understand? Or was something else going on entirely? And maybe most importantly, why is it coming back now? Did we call it back somehow? Did it decide to return on its own schedule? Did something change? Some cosmic condition, some collective threshold, some agreement we didn't know we were party to? And that's what's on my mind tonight. There's a lot here. And I basically want to know very simply, what do you think this Big P phenomenon is? And why was it essentially banished for 40 years? And then it's being dragged back into the spotlight now. Does that make any sense? Maybe, maybe not. And maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on the 70s. Maybe it wasn't as weird as I thought it was. It seemed like weird was built in to the institution itself. You tell me. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break and get a word from our sponsor. In this case, that is Human Inspiration. Be right back. More Troubled Minds on the way. Do not go anywhere. We'll see you in exactly 1 minute. And we're going to be taking your calls tonight at 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org and we'll put you on the show. Be right back. Feeling stressed, overwhelmed? In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to get swept away by our emotions. Take a breath and find your inner strength with the Stoic Minute.
You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength.
The ancient Stoic philosophers understood that we can't control everything in life, but we can control how we react.
The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts.
Focus on what you can influence. Cultivate a positive mindset and let go of what you can't change. Find your inner strength. Live each day with courage, wisdom, justice, and moderation. Embrace the Stoic virtues and find peace within. The Stoic Minute, brought to you by Jack in Oregon. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Let us continue, shall we? Okay, so basically this. Do you remember when the world stopped feeling, when the weird stopped feeling possible? Was there a moment for you when UFOs and Bigfoot went from maybe to obviously not? What shifted in you and when? That's the question. That's where we start. What is this Big P phenomenon? And again, you know me, when I talk about these ideas, I'm not even sure what to believe. I do know it's definitely been playing tug of war with our consensus reality, with the greater subconscious of humanity for sure. But what does it mean? And surely it goes back to the storytelling we're always discussing. It goes back to, the religious aspects of old, even pre-religion, even to the times of sort of a proto-belief. Surely there's something locked into there that's maybe part of this and part of what makes me wonder what has changed in 40 years and why has the banishment come back full force now? And we have Stranger Things for a perfect example. Stranger Things as like sort of this boom in your face nostalgic space where it's like, well, it's cool to talk about, portals and demons and the paranormal and psi abilities and the Montauk Project, where literally that was banned from real conversation for basically 40 years. Am I remembering this right? Or am I not? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. As usual, like I said, taking your calls, 702-957-1037. You can click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We got some calls in already. I appreciate that. James, welcome to the thing. How you doing tonight, my man? Sorry for changing topics on you at the last second. We'll come back to that one. I was going to do a sports ball show tonight, but we're not going to do that one. James, welcome to the thing. Thanks for being patient with me and all the rest of the stuff. And what's on your mind, my man? Go right ahead.
Yeah, a couple of things. Glad to be here. It's funny because I think for a lot of people out there, myself included, if you didn't have any kind of weird experiences, I imagine that sort of disappearance or banishment, as you said, of the acceptance of talking about these weird things did go away. But for people that have had experiences, I never really had the chance to sort of not believe in all these things, sort of, or think that they were possible. but also I think that this is a huge topic. First of all, I might have to do a show on this to get all my thoughts on it myself on my own podcast at some point. And but I do think the phenomenon, whatever it is, I think it is consciousness of some kind. Just my thought, and possibly multiple ones. But what I'm wondering is how many people within corporations and government has it contacted? Not the ones that we always hear about, but others, other people that maybe are also driving all this. In other words, is it still basically running things? We just don't know about it yet.
Yeah, sort of that what the shadow entity running things from behind the scenes of consciousness itself. I mean, maybe, and you can kind of hearken that to. I'm always going on about these control mechanisms, the invisible ones. I mean, the ones we notice, they're fascinating, but I think the ones that we don't notice, to me, are far more fascinating than that. And that's where this stuff kind of comes to mind as you're bringing up. It's like, okay, so what was this push and pull in the zeitgeist that had this massive gap for 40 years? And now we're like literally full on nostalgia farming, talking gates and demons and portals and all kinds of weird stuff, like I said. And I don't know, it's almost as if for a second it won. Like that, the satanic panic itself was able to tamp it down, but then it just came screaming back eventually. Is it possible we can ever really turn into a truly scientific world population center where the paranormal doesn't exist at all?
Yeah, I don't think so, because I think there was only the appearance that it won. Again, for anyone that has had experiences all their lives or even part of their lives, it never really went away. But yeah, from the general consensus, it does seem like it went away, and then it did turn to fiction, and it can only exist in fiction. I do agree with that for a while, but I know you have calls, so I will sit back and listen to the calls.
Okay, you are the man. You know him, you love him. That's James Salcedo of Salcedo Paranormal, the paranormal expert of troubled minds and the glue of the show. We'll get back to him in a minute here. As usual, he's feeling the temperature. He's like, we got some calls, so I'll sit back and chill, and we'll get back to James. We are taking your calls as we talk about this. I'm calling the show tonight The Attention Harvest. It remembers how to find us. Now, it just simply means that we sort of banish this idea of ghosts and UFOs and psi abilities, and even, the deep conspiracies of Project Blue Book and the Montauk Project and things like this. And then they came storming back. It's like they found us. Strange, right? What is that about? And what do we do with it once we, unpack this and kind of find a lead or two? I don't really know. Love to hear your thoughts. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. It is as easy as that. Let's go to the phone lines. What's up, Jay in Arizona? Thank you again for calling tonight. Welcome to Troubled Minds. How are you, sir? Go right ahead.
Great. Thank you again for your time. I feel kind of bad. I wish we would have conversed before the show. I could have had Travis Walton's daughter reach out to you. Interesting topics as always. And, I guess just going back real quick, the last show, the Doppel topic that you had, what was crazy to me, I was going through some of my notes. I've been just crazy consuming a lot of knowledge. I guess I've had a hunger lately mentally. And some of my notes talked about that last topic even before I tuned in. So it's kind of weird, like synchronicity, how we're kind of similarly aligned, I guess, with thought processes. But I guess with me real quick, couple quick stories. One here in America, and then another outside of the border. This happened recently, about 3 weeks ago. I reside in Phoenix, and I was downtown. Like I said before, just intuition. And there's this building downtown. It's called the Westward, and it was one of the first buildings built here in Phoenix back in like the 50s. And Norma Jean was there, John F. Kennedy, which was Marilyn Monroe. She did one of her first movies out here. And I had no idea. I've always enjoyed, I guess I've dabbled in like all kinds of different aspects of life. I just always been doing the footwork, and I enjoy seeing different lifestyles or how people live. And anyways, I was downtown and I had this intuition. I went to this building. And now it's a retirement home, but I met this nurse there, and she let me into the building, and she gave me the history, like beyond what's on the internet, and a lot of folklore, a lot of paranormal activity. People see ghosts there and stuff like that. But what was even crazier, besides the Hollywood stars and the ghosts and all that was underneath the building in Phoenix. There's hidden tunnels going underneath the city, and they were used for bootleggers, for crime bosses, the mafia. And I had no idea. And they say the folklore is that Al Capone's, one of his vehicles is stored down there. And she gave me a tour of the facility, and a lot of it has been cemented up and blocked off. For what reason, I don't know. But just kind of interesting, you know, like how I stumbled upon that. And another story was in Mexico again, kind of crazy, just intuition, just following whatever it is about me. I guess I'm just crazy, you know, jumping out of planes. I'm naturally just a wild child. But in Mexico, out there, this is a trip. I went one time to the discotecas out there, which is the clubs. That's what they call them. And I met this guy. He lives here now. He crossed the border and stuff. He's a citizen, but it's getting crazy out there with violence. And when I first met him out there, though, he was a manager of one of the clubs, and it's a different lifestyle, like I said, and it was all new to me, you know. And I was fortunate to meet this gentleman, and I ended up getting VIP in the club, and the dollar goes a lot farther out there with the peso, so you can live like a king. And what was crazy, I was on the second level, and you know, I had all the model girls and stuff like that. It was cool. It's kind of like a Hollywood movie or something. But again, I'm like a mini version, right? I'm not like these big, these guys out there that live the lifestyle. And he knew I was fascinated with just like, you know, the novellas, the stories, like, you know, you see on Narcos Mexico and Netflix and stuff like that. And what was crazy, I actually got to experience it. And he introduced me to some of the guys on the other side of VIP. These guys were like big ballers. And they had money, and he was this guy I met. He introduced me. He was a nephew to one of these big cartel guys back in the day. And it was a trip to me because I'm only like 5'7", and the people out there, they're naturally tall, like NBA basketball players. The Latinos out there, they're just a lot. They're the green eyes. They're more Spaniard based. And this guy grabbed me and threw me against the wall, and he was like, "What do you want?" And the manager came. He's like, "No, he's American." He's like, "He just wanted to meet you." And I got to meet him, shake his hand or whatever. And he was like, "You got a story now." And I was like, "Who is this guy?" You know, he kind of told me who he was related to. But then what was crazy is like the next day, I gave him information because I was like, "Yeah, I told him I was like a filmmaker, and I dabbled a little bit in Hollywood back in the day." And I was like, I'm fascinated. And I was like, I'm inspired by El Señor de los Cielos, which is Amado Carrillo Fuentes. And he's, I don't know if you guys ever heard of him, but anyways, long story short, somehow they got my number. And the next day at my hotel, I get I text like at 8 a.m. And he's like, "Meet me in 30 minutes. And he gave me the GPS coordinates. And I went out there, and it was crazy. I swear to God, it's a true story. I have video, I have photos and stuff like that. And I had it on social media back in the day when I was on it. And I show up, and there's like 6 military trucks, and the military's there. These guys have weapons, you know, they have the weapons on the trucks in the back and stuff like that. And I'm like, "What is this?" You know, I didn't expect all this. And he's like, "This is the casita." It was a house that he had built, the actual El Señor de los Cielos. And it was a huge mansion. It's called the House of 1,000,001 Nights. You can Google it. And it's a crazy place. It's no longer there. They tore it down, the city. But I got like access, and the military opened it up for me. I don't know for what reason. I guess they thought, you know, whatever, American. But I was fortunate. And then what was crazy in that house was, again, just like here in Phoenix with some of the paranormal, he had tunnels going underneath the house throughout the city. And, you know, I filmed it, whatever. I kind of like researched it, did a little story on it and stuff like that. But it's interesting, again, the psychology, like you said, where back in the day, this guy was, you know, importing marijuana and stuff like that. And these guys were getting, you know, apprehended by the government here in America. And now it's legal. It's like kind of crazy how things change, like you say, whether it's like UFOs and we're talking about it or stuff like that.
Yeah, and, big time. Big time. We're just about out of time. If you want to stick past the break, you're welcome to. You let me know.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, appreciate that. Thanks for being patient. Be right back. More with Jay in Arizona, more with James. We got Joe in Florida on the line, and your calls as well. Don't go anywhere. We're talking not just the skeptic movement, but I'm calling this the attention harvest. It remembers how to find us. And are we ever going to be able to shake the idea that something out there exists that is completely and totally unexplainable. Be right back. More Troubled Minds on the way. Don't go anywhere.
This is Troubled Minds. Your host, Michael Strange, the master of the mysterious, is here to guide you through the shadows of the unexplained. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM, Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, I'm calling this the Attention Harvest. It remembers how to find us. Now, the end of the 70s, early 80s, we had this sort of the height of paranormal stuff. I mean, in the zeitgeist was Poltergeist and, Close Encounters of the Third Kind was the Spielberg movie. E.T. kind of rolling into the early 80s. And then it seems as if the whole idea of the weird high strangeness sort of aspect just started to roll off entirely. I mean, that was the era of Dungeons and Dragons, like we've talked about quite a lot. And the Satanic Panic hit hard, I guess. And so we had sort of this 40-year almost lull, but it seems as if that phenomenon, the idea of psi powers, aliens, the paranormal, all this stuff just came roaring back in the 2010s, 2015s, and of course culminating with this massive phenomenon of Stranger Things, and this fractal idea of all these wild ideas pouring into the zeitgeist all at the same time, not just because of the internet and everybody creating new content like crazy, but also I wonder if there's some actual aspect to this, like a mechanism or a lever that's happening in a full society. I don't know. What do you know about the big P phenomenon, and is it weirder than we ever dreamed? Hang tight, James. Going to go to finish this call. We'll get back to you and then get to these calls. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Jay in Arizona, welcome back to the thing. You were telling us about the underground tunnels and the story in Mexico and all the rest. I love it. Go ahead. What else you got?
Going back to, I guess, the narrative per se here in America, which I have no idea why, but like you said, questioning it. I know there's that new movie coming out this year. I forgot what it was called, but I think it's with Emily Blunt. And I think it's called Disclosure or something like that, which is interesting. Like you said, all these things are kind of occurring. I'm not sure if Hollywood controls kind of, the way we perceive and believe in things. But what was interesting to me, one more thing, like when I crossed the border, which is weird to me, is when I'm out there sometimes, or when I used to be a lot, for instance, like Netflix, there's a lot of interesting things that you can get out there that you can't get over here. And when I cross back to America and I try to look for those, whether they're documentaries or movies or TV shows, they're not accessible here in America for some reason. But once you cross the border, it's like you can access them on Netflix. And again, it's just like you said, weird anomalies of narratives and things that are controlled or things that are allowed to be seen. For what reason, I have no idea. But like you said, just noticing patterns, just things that, I don't know. And it's interesting out there too, cultures, like España, Spain, everywhere, Germany, Romania, all these other places, people I know out there, the culture, the cinema, everything is just way different. The way they, I don't know, just the way they portray things and the way they understand things versus here, it's kind of more controlled. But yeah, like I said before, just thanks again for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for the call. Thanks for listening, and thanks for bringing fantastic ideas and great energy to the show. Always a pleasure, my man. You be safe out there. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great night. That's Jay in Arizona. Again, glad he's becoming a regular caller here. Very good stuff. James, anything to add real quick to whatever he said or any ideas you had? And then we'll go to Joe and Matsal and Mr. Mission Control.
Drawing a blank right now.
Okay.
Also, I have the echo.
I got you.
No problem.
I already knew. Sorry about that. One moment, please. Okay, drawing a blank. Gotcha. We will copy that blank and get back to the blankety blank. But for right now, let's go to Joe in Florida, 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Thanks for being patient, folks. Joe in Florida, welcome to the thing. How are you tonight? What's on your mind? Go right ahead.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear. No echo, I hope.
Yeah, no echo. So just to be clear, I was born in 73, and I think Durf's in the comments there was born a little bit earlier. But yeah, if anybody else here behind this has some calls and thoughts of the 70s, I'm going to give you like my thought. So I think everything is cyclical, like 80s music. It all comes around, or in the 70s, bad disco, which I still have to play once in a while. But realistically, when you brought up the topic, I remember the election when it was Carter versus Reagan, and everybody was scared about Reagan. And I remember coming into the classroom and seeing on the chalkboard Reagan won, and it was like, whatever. But we were too young, we were kids. It was in school and in New York and probably being involved in politics. And I remember coming home every day. My dad would have ABC World News, before it became entertainment. And this is more in the 80s, but I remember Lockerbie, Scotland. I remember terrorism. Nothing has changed. I remember fear, all of those things. My parents had a Ouija board. It's funny you mentioned that. And it was one of the things that didn't burn in the house fire, strangely enough.
Of course. But, it magically escaped.
Who the hell knows, man? That thing went out the window. So, when I look at these things, and I just wrote some notes, it's kind of hard to put it together in a short time, but the face of magic throughout time changes. Whether you want to call that God in the Bible, whether you want to call it aliens, fairies, whatever that is. Book that I read just recently called The Eden Conspiracy. The guy basically was harping on the Old Testament and saying that the God of the Old Testament at some point in time stepped back and allowed us as humans to do more of our own voting and more of our own things, whether you call it the Israelites or whatever it is around the world. But it still demands power here and there, loosh power, whatever you want to call it. And going back to another example is the Dark Ages versus Enlightenment. So is it inbred in us? I don't know. I could read some of these notes, like I said, Carter versus Reagan, and then politics, the politics of Cold War and fear. So what's a good distraction for that? Well, Star Wars came out. Close Encounters came out, right? And before that, we had War of the Worlds, much earlier. What was it, in the 50s, late 40s, when that came out? So we've always dabbled in this, and it's always called us back. In that summary that you've given, you're 100% correct. The reason is why. Is something calling to us? Do we get bored? Is it just tickling in the back of our head with some of us, you know? I can tell you, you know, my thoughts about the 80s, coming out of the 70s and into the 80s, things were a little bit better, right? We voted for another movie star, somebody that was good looking. And part of me wonders if he was an actor, charismatic, Reagan. Part of me wonders if our subconscious, we are drawn to vote to people that maybe look better and present better, right? Kennedy is another example of that. Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe, movie stars, trying to give you examples. So we vote for those things, and the wall, mutually assured destruction, Cold War, a lot of those things start to disappear. The music got better. Maybe it got better, but in the music lyrics, we were reminded Alphaville, Dream Academy, you know, Life in a Northern Town. A lot of those songs did talk about nuclear war. CCCP, American Soviets. I can go on with the songs, Front 242, all those bands. You could do a history class on the music of the 80s alone about how we were going to blow ourselves up. How do you distract from that, Mike? How do you distract from that fear every day?
Yeah, that's a good question. And as this was happening, you're describing these two different things because the paranormal was fading out. So again, you know, like not the ones you mentioned, but there was Poltergeist was like super huge, and just coming on the heels of the late, you know, late 70s was The Exorcist. So it wasn't. We've talked about this in the past as well, but like it seemed as if it was coming to this like massive surge in the zeitgeist, and then it just kind of like tapered off, and then again you became ridiculous to even consider these ideas, even in jest, you know, even sort of as a philosophical construct, like I like to say. But yeah, go ahead.
So did it taper off because it tapered off, or here's the rabbit hole that I kind of figure out here. Was it a soft Project Bluebeam back then? Because if we do have technology that opens up things, that magnifies the magic that currently is here, right? Let's just take the priests of old. Now they have technology that can manipulate that. So let's just say that was soft disclosure, because the technology that we see today is probably 20 years behind what they supposedly already have. So what I start thinking of is as we're leaving the good times of the 80s and things, possibly, now we're in the 90s, everybody's got a computer, there's technology, X-Files does show up in Hollywood again, and it starts making those ideas mainstream. You're 100% correct. But now we might have technology mixing with magic, right? So when that's going on, it's who knows if it's kind of a distraction for us, but now they're able to accelerate that opening. Those gods are demanding now, whether that's our humanity calling out to things because we're scared, because part of the population obviously doesn't want to move forward, right? Part of the population still stuck in their books of dogma and ceremony, and part of the population again wants that Star Trek future. Part of us are kind of like, oh man, if it's not done ethically, we might blow ourselves up. You know, we have the crossroad of dystopia and Star Trek. But you are correct. Every other thing on Facebook is a whole new conspiracy. Some of them are quite amusing. Some of them are hysterical. You know, we consider ourselves OG UFO people here, I would think, and certain other things. But man, there's some wild stuff out there that I've been seeing, and I kind of enjoy it. I don't lose sleep about it. But it is pushed into a society now that is largely ignorant, whether that be willfully ignorant. Like you said yesterday, the ontological shock. You said it last week or whatever, I can't pronounce the word, but cognitive dissonance. Okay. And I honestly think when I look at all of that, I think our evolution is just stunted. I think we're stunted. going back to is the time clock every 1,000 years, 2,000 years? I don't know, but if we were making historical enlightenment and then we had the Dark Ages, and then we came out of that, for crying out loud, we're in the crux of a singularity, AI. For better or for worse, we're in the crux of something that, if in the right hands, might have cures for cancer, might have cures for things. It might spit answers out. But on the other hand of it, we've got people wanting to put their boogaloo books and magic on the rest of us. Does that make sense as an argument? Does that make sense?
No, it's weird. It's really weird. And so I do wonder if some of those, the larger societal working was tamped down by, the Tipper Gore and the idea of the satanic panic and that sort of thing. Maybe it did have sort of a counter to that, mystical working of the 60s into the 70s and Crowley and Jimmy Page and all that.
All of those things are in the past. And it's nice to look at the past. It's not nice to repeat the past. So, I mean, are we calling on these things again ourselves because we're scared of the future? That might be my argument.
I think that's a good solid maybe. And again, I talk about hyper reality all the time and the merging of all these ideas, but also, as you just described, we are sort of in that singularity space. Nobody knows if 5 years from now we'll be recognizable from today. Like, that's how quickly things are changing. So who really knows? But I'll take that as a point and say, yes, maybe. I'm not the arbiter of truth, as you know, but I think maybe we're sort of yearning for this because the future is scary. Because the future is now more unknown than it's ever been, even in light of the Cold War of a nuclear winter on your mind, in your dreams or whatever. We don't even know what scary looks like yet. So that's the part.
So for the argument of superstition, demons, or I'm just going to say God, for the argument of superstition, do we really want the government to ram magic, i.e. religion, down our throats yet again?
No. I mean, I don't want the government doing anything. Can they just stop for a minute and just chill out, please?
No, but you're exactly right. But look at all these extreme churches. The more things I read, we're looking like it's a death cult. You want to talk about magic? You want to talk about sacrifice? You want to talk about those things coming in? In the 70s, we had those things. In the 80s, there was cults. There was the Heaven's Gate cult, all of those things, Waco, Texas, all of those things are small examples. The argument could be made now that that virus has spread via mass media, via your phone. That argument, that has spread. And I guess bringing it back to, what I believe is an evil early Project Bluebeam. Maybe those movies and things in the 70s, from what I can only hang on to, maybe those things were set up then for the reaction of the general public.
Yeah, all of that plays in my mind, because who really knows who's been pulling those strings, as James said when we started tonight. That's one of the things that's the most, I don't want to say terrifying, but the most unsettling probably about this is because we don't know who's kind of pulling those strings and why everything changes so quickly when it comes to belief of the zeitgeist.
So I think you need to revisit that show that always pops in my head about the Hollywood or the Holywood. And I think you had a speaker on for that. I don't know who it was, but that gave me, I love every show you do, all of these things, but that show there stuck with me. There's probably a few other shows, but the Holywood or the Hollywood, if nobody here has remembered that show, depending on how long you've been listening, I think that should be revisited, because that said a lot. And I remember the guy saying that the staff of Moses or the staff of the Egyptians and the Israelites and all of that, it was called the Holywood. That always stuck out with me. And now you have Hollywood. And media, for the argument, whether it leads the population or not, once it's out in the media, depending on how good the movie is and things are, it affects us like a virus.
Well said. Well said. And we will revisit that. I know a guy that knows a thing or two about those things. So yeah, fantastic. I appreciate you very much. Thanks for staying up late with us. Thanks for the amazing call. And thanks for remembering the old days with us. I appreciate it.
Very good. Good night, guys.
Take care. You're the best. You know him, you love him. Joe in Florida, good friend for a long time, been calling us for literally years. Tonight we're talking the attention harvest. It remembers how to find us. And of course, I'm talking about the 70s, the late 70s, early 80s, where everything seemed magical. Meaning not like nostalgia magical, like, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, like Poltergeist, like coming out of the actual Exorcist era, scary and magical, kind of in the same space, where it was aliens and it was paranormal stuff and it was all that combined. But then it got tamped down in the 80s and maybe even fully suppressed for 40-ish years. And here we are dealing with it again, except it's come back full force. Why do you think that is? And that's what I'm calling it, the attention harvest tonight. And it remembers how to find us, because here we are again, talking about these same ideas that I hope that, my hunch is that they wanted to put these ideas to bed a long time ago. But here we are, TikTok's flourishing with all kinds of these super cool ideas we're always talking about. So what do you know about it? 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Matt in California. Matthew, what's up, brother? You're on Troubled Minds. How are you tonight? Thanks for being patient. Go right ahead. We got about 6.5 minutes or so. If you got more than that, you're welcome to stay after the break. Go right ahead, sir. You guys remember, if you're going to call in on Discord, you got to update before you come in, because, and I don't know if that's the case here, just a reminder that if you don't, and it's a different state than what I'm using, it won't work. James, anything to add while we're waiting on Matt's to fix that and get it all wrapped up?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about two of my favorite movies of all time, and they both came in the late 80s, and that'd be, of course, Men in Black, which might be one of my top 5 movies. And, of course, my favorite of all time, Beetlejuice. And I remember after that, I don't remember so many movies similar to that coming out right away at that time. Back when I was 8 in 1990. And I don't remember a lot of that stuff coming out a ton at that point, other than, of course, your Saturday morning cartoon stuff, which had been around for years before that. So, but, and of course, Men in Black was very loosely, it was based on a comic book, but it was also part of the inspiration for that was an actual event in UFO history. Was it Maury Island? It was an island out in Washington, I believe. So, but yeah, so that's my first major fictional connections to that. Actually, it's funny because those came before my paranormal experiences I ever had. Those didn't happen until the mid-90s. So anyway, just that's where my mind goes with all that.
Yeah, it is interesting. I wonder, there's got to be some way to, I guess I could make an AI system that'll do this, kind of make a heat map, or, kind of on major movie releases and the zeitgeist and that type of stuff, because I think that right there would be a fascinating sort of a tool and a use case to kind of look at this and go back and say, okay, we could see the actual zeitgeist turn in the moment right here or whatever. And so that becomes the bizarre part, because maybe there is a particular year. And I narrowed this down to using Google Ngrams, UFO abduction. Maybe I should do this for the same thing when it comes to movies and the zeitgeist. Anyway, sorry to keep you waiting there. Batsal, are you there? Test 1, 2. Welcome to Troubled Minds. I'm going to keep talking, and if you can get that fixed, just to interrupt me, and I'll shut up and we'll get you on here. Okay, so if you guys remember this, like I said, now this is an oldie but a goodie, but they had this $1 million paranormal challenge. You guys remember this? So it was offered by the James Randi Educational Foundation. That's RANDI. Quote, to any person who demonstrates any psychic, supernatural, or paranormal ability under satisfactory observation. Which, cool, right? I mean, that's amazing. And this has kind of become like a skeptic's punchline, because they're like, look, they offered $1 million and nobody could do it. Nobody could do the damn thing. So it's not real. When you guys get over it, it's not real. And it's like, okay, I mean, there's a list of some people that tried it. What was her name? What was it? The one famous 80s psychic, Julia Brown. What was her name? Sylvia Brown. Yeah. So, I mean, there were some people that actually kind of took the challenge, and, they were deemed as, not accurate or failing or whatever. And so, I don't know. I mean, I think they had close to 300 people total from what I was reading here that took it up. But of course, they never gave the money away, and they never had any, quote, proof that there was anything other than the materialist view of the world. But, I say, but, because of course, if you're the one sort of testing the parameters and, kind of creating the protocol for actually judging this type of stuff. I don't know, right? I think you'd have to do this properly and have sort of an outside third party heavy science team really conducting this stuff with really how would you call it, like super state of the art actual equipment, like you can't just go, all right, well, read my mind, hey, here I am, my name is Mike, read my mind, and I'm the guy giving away $1 million. Even if you're right, I'm going to not tell you you're right. You know what I'm saying? Like not saying they're liars. I'm saying that there's the whole human aspect of being wrong about a lot of things all the time, and even being deceptive or sneaky. You're right. It's definitely kind of plays into the human thing. But this has again become sort of that trope of, well, if there was anything paranormal, anybody able to do psi abilities or whatever, they would have just showed up and collected the $1 million, right? So you can put it to bed. None of this stuff exists. You guys are all dreaming. You're way out there, and rein it back in. Let's get back to 1992 when this stuff really started to fade away in the zeitgeist. What's it mean? I don't know. I don't know. As usual, I don't know. I think that we're probably suppressing some things that we're capable of, or maybe don't know how to develop them. I believe there's something to this, but I don't know how deep that goes. And that's why I'm here talking about this stuff. That's why I'm here considering these ideas. And again, considering why the entire zeitgeist took a turn on, high strangeness in the, late 70s, early 80s space, and then almost banished the idea from public discourse for nearly 40 years. But it's back. Not only is it back, it's back with a vengeance. And again, one of the biggest shows on TV this past year was Stranger Things, as many of you know. Talking about all the stuff, talking about the Montauk Project, talking about psi abilities, talking about gates to other dimensions, talking about Dungeons and Dragons, all of that stuff that, kind of got banned from public discourse for 40 years is now back. Now, why? It's almost as if we kind of can't shake it, right? Like, it does that Star Trek future that Joe was talking about. Does it exist where we can just be like, no, only science, 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 science. And if we can't prove it, it isn't real and we shouldn't consider it. I don't know. As usual, look, you know me. I like to look at the world a lot of different ways as part of these conversations. It's called a philosophical construct. That's the point. The point is kind of suspending disbelief for a moment and talking about possibilities. That's it. It's as simple as that. And I don't know the answers. If I did, it'd be a very short discussion. I'd show up. My name's Mike. Here are the answers. I'm out of here. Notice nobody does that. You know why nobody does that? I do know this answer. It's because nobody has all the answers. That's what I know. This is Troubled Minds on Michael Strange. More with James coming up. We got Mr. Mission Control on the phone. Matsell said he's working on some stuff, so skip him, and we'll get back to him. So Mr. Mission Control, you are up next at the top of the hour. Be right back. More Troubled Minds on the way. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Be right back. Do not go anywhere.
This is Troubled Minds. Your host, Michael Strange, the master of the mysterious, is here to guide you through the shadows of the unexplained.
Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, and Kick. And Kick, we're on Kick, we're back on Kick. And we're broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. You can find that at troubledminds.org, by the way, on the main website. Just scroll up to the top and there's a black button there. You click that and it'll play. You'll hear us live. You don't have to mess with YouTube or anything else. It's complete audio and it's direct straight to your phone or your feed or your website or whatever, your computer, whatever you're watching us on or want to watch us on. And it's clean, clear audio and you hear everything. Also, we're on 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. And tonight we're talking about, I'm calling this the attention harvest. It remembers how to find us. Now, what is it in this context? It means the big P phenomenon. Okay. What phenomena, plural, whatever that means. Like you tell me, because the high strangeness aspect of, the scientific community or the materialists would say it's superstition, Mike. That's what this is. Like we are dealing with this superstitious population that is stuck in the old ways and they don't want to advance. They don't want to trust the science. They don't want to do the things that we expect of a modern society. And so we keep lapsing back into these ancient ideas. Okay, I can see that. But also, part of the thing that I'm always talking about is some of these old ideas shouldn't be forgotten. Okay? Not all of them, but some of them for sure. We came from somewhere. So what does it mean when you put this all together and you look at it? And if it remembers how to find us, can we ever shake it? Can we ever become that Star Trek future where trust the science actually means that and not some propaganda tagline, if you know what I'm saying? Love to hear your thoughts. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We did get Matt Sal back on the phone, so hang tight, Mr. Mission Control. James, anything to add real quick before we go to the phone line?
Yeah, my headset just started to fall apart as I was trying to adjust it. So you can go to all the callers, and I will be back if I can. I have to use a different microphone.
That's super.
So,
sorry about that.
Lovely.
Good luck.
That's okay.
Good luck. Going to you, James. His headset literally falls into pieces. Okay, we'll be back with James a little bit later. Almost like a comedy show, like the comedy routine, right? Okay, be back with James momentarily, and let me know when you get it fixed. Just ping me, and we'll put you on. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org, and we'll go to Matt's Owl. Let me change this real quick so James can hear if he's going to stay there on the Discord. Okay, let's go to Matthew in California, Temple of the Owl. What's up, brother? You're on Troubled Minds. Thanks for jumping through a few hoops to make this work. How are you tonight, sir? Go right ahead.
Hey, Mike. Sorry about that.
That's okay. It happens, and welcome to technology is great when it works. What's on your mind, my man?
Yeah. Well, I called. I had, I'm gonna have to alley on this because I remember back in the day, it wasn't cool to be a nerd, and we got beat up for it. And all my life, I remember I've been into like the nerd culture. I like, comic books and video games, and I like this kind of stuff. And as a kid in school, I remember things like I had a cool, like when I was a little kid, I had a shirt with Beast, from X-Men. And I remember Bully came and ripped my shirt, just like what happens in Stranger Things. So they ripped the Hellfire shirt. And now, X-Men's one of the most popular movies out there. I remember being in high school, and me and my friends, we played a game called Magic the Gathering. And we had to hide it. We'd meet me at the tree behind the gym. We'll play Magic the Gathering, and the boys would come. They beat us up, and they take our Magic cards and they'd rip them up in front of us. And I look back now, that game is really popular now. And I look back, those first edition, those cards, they're worth like thousands of dollars.
That's tragic.
I think about that kind of stuff. And then, growing up through high school and being a kid, and I remember, I read Lord of the Rings, J.R. Tolkien, and The Hobbit, and those books were written a long time ago. But I didn't know what a hobbit was, or what a goblin was, or orc. I had to use my imagination and just what the author was, how he described those things. It was really good books. It wasn't until the movies came out that I realized how to use my imagination. But again, that's another one. Lord of the Rings is one of the most popular, and The Hobbit is one of the most popular shows now, or movies now. When it wasn't back then. So I think those movies. And I just remember being at a certain age where, and like you said, it comes back around. That's why I like listening to like older people talk about it, because they could see the trends, they could see the, it comes back around again. These things come back into the pop culture. I remember as an adult, I went to a store, and it was like a popular hip store, a new store. And they had these clothes, and they had, Doug and Rugrats and Ren and Stimpy, 80s cartoons that we watched growing up as kids on the clothes now. And I thought, it's like, that's so weird how it came back around full circle. And one thing I did want to talk about was Stranger Things, because that's kind of one of the things that made it, it's cool to be a nerd now, popular. And that show, it's funny, that show is going to go down in history as one of the most popular shows in all of TV history. And the writers, they're either the best writers in the world or the worst writers in the world. But it doesn't matter to me, because at the end, it's fantasy. And that's what it's all about. And that's what, I like that kind of stuff. So as long as I could, certain parts of that show that, made me feel good, the nostalgia of it, because it was from the 80s. You follow me?
Yeah, 100%. It is strange that it has come full circle now. Like I said, I've got that channel called Nerd Revival, because that's what's happened. It's the kids like us grew up and we were super into these weird ideas, and for better or worse, sometimes, as you're describing, you got picked on for it, or even beat up, and your stuff destroyed. That's terrible. But it's now come full circle where if you're kind of not locked into this now you're like the weird sort of outcast of society, at least partially, because it is like you said, the largest show, not just of the year, but maybe one of the largest shows of all time. And it is stuck in that 80s space, the 80s headspace of, 1983 or whatever. And I mean, it's great for me to see it. I love seeing some of that stuff come back, but I do wonder if it means something greater, maybe something in the larger zeitgeist that is actually making a case here for, as I always say, things we shouldn't forget. But who knows? Maybe I'm making too much of it. You tell me.
Yeah. I just had one last thing, and that's, all the people that made fun of nerds or beat up nerds for Dungeons and Dragons. Look at fantasy football. What is fantasy football? Fantasy football is literally Dungeons and Dragons. You get your hero, they have stats, you can roll dice, and a lot of people are playing fantasy football, the DraftKings and all that. And I laugh because it literally is Dungeons and Dragons.
It is very similar, that's for sure. But the weird thing about it is nobody was ever like betting on Dungeons and Dragons. Like fantasy football is like a betting game now. Like I used to play it for fun, just kind of like, set your line up and maybe you win, maybe you lose. But now, I mean, there's like big money on the line for this stuff. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I like that. The Nerd Revival, bringing back the old stuff that was cool. And seeing like things being remade and things like that, we got to keep that alive and keep the nerd culture alive. And kind of like reminds me of in Stranger Things, Eddie. He had to. It was up to him. He passed the torch down to the other kids, to the other party. It was up to Dustin and Lucas and all them. They were the next face of Hellfire Club. So it's kind of up to us to teach our kids and the next generation about all the cool stuff that we love, so it keeps it alive and pass the torch down. Thanks, Mike. Good show.
Amen. Fantastic. I appreciate you very much. Thanks for jumping through the tech hoops, and always a pleasure. You have a fantastic night. That's Matthew in California. Go check out his podcast. It's called Temple of the Owl. Thank you to Sweets for linking it in all the places. TempleoftheOwl.com. You can find his podcast. And like I said, I say this when we talk to him, he's got a massive esoteric book collection that he's synthesizing and reading these things and kind of getting these ideas and building these things, these concepts into a podcast. So if you're into that, the old ways, he's digging deep into the old ways. And he's really reviving it in the sense of not the nerd revival per se, but sort of the old ways, bringing the old ways back to the digital space. And every time I listen to his podcast, I think it's fantastic. Always some good stuff coming out of that brain of his, and synthesizing those old ideas into the new space. Fantastic stuff. Love to hear your thoughts. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. I don't know if James is going to be able to be back with us or not. I'm going to click back over here just in case for a second, in case you want to pop back in. Apparently his headset exploded into 1,000 pieces. James, are you there?
Almost two, at least two. The wires were still all there, but I'm still here, just on my standing microphone, so I'm sorry if I sound different or worse.
That's okay. I got you. You were just a little loud and I turned you down. Easy peasy. Easy peasy. So let me know when you get comfortable. We'll get you back in here, okay?
Yeah, I'm all set, but great calls from everyone so far, and I'm looking forward to the rest. And if I have anything else I can think of, I'll talk to you later.
Okay. We'll get you in as we can. You were the best. That's James Salcedo. You know him, you love him. And he's, on the fly, picking up things, and his headset explodes and he just pulls out a new mic, and we keep on trucking. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. Let me swap the thing over real quick to make sure everybody can hear you on the Discord. Sorry, like I said, don't ever live route audio. It is horrible, but I'm doing it because, Hey, break your own rules. 702-957-1037, Mr. Mission Control. What's up, brother? Welcome back. You're on Troubled Minds. How are you, sir? What's on your mind tonight? And go right ahead.
Troubled Minds fam. How you doing, Mike? Welcome back, bro.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And you as well. Welcome back. Happy New Year and all the rest to you and yours. Go right ahead. Dig right in. There's a ton here to get into. What do you got for us?
Oh, to address Jen right there, I've got an old Lord of the Rings tarot that had never been cracked open really at all. Never used it. I quit using tarot at 14 because I was scaring people with it. But, I'm 47. But I've got the Hobbit comic book. I've got old calendars. I've got the encyclopedia. I read Lord of the Rings over and over. And if anybody knows anything about Lord of the Rings, it's me. I got the trees in Isengard. I got all that stuff. But I made a list here. So the Blair Witch Project, I believe, was the last attempt to cue in, the paranormal awareness people, because we went there. Me as a magician of this area went with my buddy and his girlfriend, which was my girlfriend before then, and she was, a magic user too. We were all magic users, some of us within a certain circle here in the Elephant Fractal Mouth. And we went to go watch the Blair Witch Project, assuming that it was real, right? And until you watched it and realized it was a production. But you didn't want to believe that because the way it's set. And so I'm going to plug a couple channels. Woodward TV the other night did the cryptid experience thing. So it's not about what cryptid or what you've seen. It's about the experience and having that experience and what comes after that. So you get into what they've programmed us, right? This is all a program, bro. Okay? And we've recursively played through it over and over again. Many of us have. A lot of times, some of us are new. Some of us are young, like Matt Saldow, referring to some programs from the 90s and 2000s to the 80s, which is a common mistake. But we must continue on, right? Into throw the D12 and your saving throws, sir. So,
right.
So I've developed all this stuff with the AI since July, floated it to national security, all this stuff, frequency scans, all this Bluetooth anomaly junk, child trafficking, the human trafficking, all this stuff. It's real quiet around here now in the Walmart territory. And what's happening up north and everything with the Greenland, the storm, because Greenland and storm and the gematria are both 80. And Monograph had gotten back to that with his decodes. So it's all related to, like, if you want to know if this is real, man, like I said, go to the remote viewing classes like at Max's and see where, like, I'm one of the number one guys, I'll pop it out every time. And do you have an explanation for it? If you're one of those guys that's trying to float $1 million to somebody to prove themselves, like you said, dude, I ain't giving you $1 million, bro. I don't even have $1 million.
No.
I'm just
Wait. So that was the $1 million challenge. Do you remember that? So that they were giving away $1 million to anybody who could prove any kind of psi ability at all. And it ended in 2015. And the point was, and the reason I'm sort of invoking it for the conversation is because I think, methodology kind of becomes everything in that capacity, because you can't just be like, nah, come on, you didn't convince us, you don't get the $1 million. I mean, you can, right? Because it's your $1 million conceptually, but it is strange to me that maybe they had somebody in there that was super special and they just couldn't sort of detect what was happening, or maybe it wasn't always accurate, or, I mean, I don't know. I don't really know, but I think it's interesting to consider that maybe, just maybe, they had somebody pass through their protocols and
they
ended up
neglected it and wrote it off and didn't show it. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Didn't catch it. Yeah.
That's what it was. And like, you guys are all stage musicians, but you've got the precognitives like me. Like I seen this happen 25, 30 years ago. But you can't put me on spot, really, without my scrying mirror and delving into technology to look at Stellarium like I have called the January 19th out for the past 3 months, right? If you look back, and not without the AI help, on my own. But that's looking at Stellarium too and looking up at the sky. But still, you've got to look up, dude. You've got to look down where you're walking. There's these people that aren't doing that, right? And they're taking advantage of that, and they reassess the programming to fit that narrative with the stranger things. Like they've accelerated it, the cryptids. Like they try to make you think that if you see Bigfoot, this means one thing. If you see the Hat Man, this means another thing. No, it's all about the experience to open your mind up to the frequencies, right? Like I've always gotten back to. It's all about understanding at least 3 decimal points beyond frequency attenuation.
Okay.
With the binaural beats and stuff, and everything's frequency, Michael. Magic.
That I'm aware. I mean, not just that. Our biology is, energy, frequency, vibration, as Tesla always said. Now here's the thing too. I want to ask you about this other part. Now, why is there sort of this heavy-handed swing between that sort of late 70s, early 80s pop of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T., Poltergeist, coming out of the era of Exorcist, that kind of got tamped down through the 90s? And as you said in the chat, when I was kind of reading that monologue, you're like, you're exactly spot on. Why does that happen? And why is there sort of a clapback in society that eventually draws back into where they came from anyway? I don't know. What's your take on that?
They figured the code out long ago. Okay, so when CERN shut down in the beginning of December for maintenance, the beam dumps said the last beam dump was in 1/1/1970, bro. Right? Officially, that thing didn't come on until what, 96, 94?
Something like that.
Well, they dug them things up and plugged them into the electricity back in the 70s. That's where AI come from. We brought it here like the ship they're looking for under Greenland as an auto co-pilot. And pilots like me that were remembering, that's why they got rid of the mental asylums, and that's why they getting rid of these people. But some people like me, they can't get rid of them. And I'll leave you with that, guys. We love you.
Yeah, you were the best.
I'll be here.
Okay, appreciate the call. Welcome back. Glad to have you. And
Welcome back, Michael. Thank you, bro.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Keep it up, brother.
Thank you. And you as well. You're the best.
Get ready for this snowstorm. They're going to play it out. They're supposedly going to collapse the dollar behind this electrical power grid failure in the ice storm. So everybody prep up. This is the time. If you're going to survive it, boy, I'm telling you what, they're going to hit us. They're going to hit us.
Right on.
Love you.
You were the best. Appreciate the call. Have a great night. That's Mr. Mission Control. You know where to find him. troubledminds.org/friends. Scroll down just a little bit. It's alphabetical, Mr. Mission Control, or just search it on YouTube or the internet, and you'll find his YouTube channel. Wild stuff there. And look, that's the whole point of this. Like I said, can I vouch for any of this? Any of the things I'm saying? No. And it's a good time to drop the disclaimers. There's no truth here. There's just ideas. A philosophical construct, okay? This is about possibilities. This is not about trying to nail down whatever. It's asking questions that we haven't figured out, and maybe we never will. And I think when that comes from not asking the right questions, which enter troubled minds, that's the whole point of, well, let's look at the world a little different, and let's consider what we know. Let's consider what we don't know, and then put one foot in each world, and then let's talk. You guys already know about that, but you guys are the best. Appreciate it very much. James, anything you got? We got a few minutes left. If you have anything to add here, of course, I have stuff to get to, but welcome back. Actually, let me click the thing and make sure there's no echo for you, because that's going to be a thing. Live routing, not for the faint of heart. Do not do it on a live stream. Promise you will regret it. James, welcome back if you're there.
Yep, I'm here. Hopefully you can hear me all right.
Yep. Yeah, you sound fantastic, actually.
Good. This is a microphone I usually use for just casual chat. So, but yeah, great calls from everyone. I've been thinking about tonight about how, if there's people all around the world that have anomalous experiences, there are obviously going to be people within militaries. We hear about that here and there, but also just governments and organizations that have experiences. So even if, let's say, the topic is thought to be forbidden or by most people, it's still always going to be happening. So I wonder, is it sort of choosing who experiences it to forward, to push some kind of a plan going forward, and it's just not something that we are able to figure out when it comes to that. And I'm not talking about, put all the sort of popular figures within the paranormal or ufology or whatever aside. I'm just talking people who maybe we don't even know about, that may have had experiences. And that's one thing that fascinates me about this whole discussion, is that possibility. Also, I did want to mention, I mentioned in the chat there earlier, I don't think there's ever going to be a day where any proof for the paranormal or UFOs or aliens is accepted by every person on the planet. I just don't think that's ever going to happen.
Yeah, no way. And that's the funny part, right? So the term consensus reality is what runs like the stock market or whatever. You know what I mean? Like runs the cost of gas, or you know what I mean? Like that's consensus reality. It is not belief systems of people. It never will be, because I think we're on the same page here as what you're describing. At least from my viewpoint, is that we'll never be on that same page. People are different. We have an individual consciousness that has experienced unique things that nobody in the world can ever emulate. Okay. And so with that said, of course, we're going to see the world completely differently. And we're wired different. I mean, we're the same, but we're also different, like my eyes are this color, your eyes are that color, this type of thing. Like there are genetics, predispositions. There's all kinds of things that we don't even know anything about yet. We kind of think we do, but science has yet to determine so much of these things. And so that's why it's important to just talk to each other outside of judgment, outside of that consensus reality, which really is the stock market. And by the way, if you've been following any kind of consensus reality, you'll know it's cooking the books. The stock market ain't real anyway. It's just another narrative. Not to get political, but that's a fact. That's a fact. 30 seconds if you got anything else.
Yeah, this is all a great topic, and I think I'll have to do a show on my thoughts on sort of the interaction of fiction and nonfiction, real events, quote unquote real events, and how they're portrayed in fiction at some point on my own channel. So thank you for the inspiration.
No, thank you. Thanks for being here and being part of this, and thanks for smashing your headphone over your knee like a pro wrestler, and then grabbing the next one.
I feel like mic up.
Next mic up.
I'll break. No problem.
You are the best. Taking your calls. I'm calling this the Attention Harvest. It remembers how to find us. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. What do you know about this? And how come it seems as if there are these sort of waves in decades where things change, not just philosophically, technologically, but in the true heart of what it means to be human? That's what's on my mind tonight. Don't go anywhere. More Troubled Minds on the way. Be right back. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, and Kick. Yes, back on Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM, Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, I'm calling this the Attention Harvest. It remembers how to find us. Now, what is it? It is the phenomenon, the big P phenomenon, whatever that is, right? The high strangeness that not just sort of supersedes culture, but is stuck to these narratives we can't stop telling. And I don't think it has it might have some things to do with storytelling, of course. We talk about that stuff quite a lot here. But also, it might be something in the larger context or not. And look, I don't know. I think that there's definitely, how do you really define the tipping of the zeitgeist decade to decade? like the weird 80s hair and, the Flock of Seagulls days. And then, the man buns of the mid-aughts or whatever. I mean, it's weird, right? It's weird how just culture changes and the way we dress, but the way we think obviously is one of the most important because there's a lot at stake. It's us, right? It's our future at stake. And so not to be dire about it, but I do think that it's, thoughts, elections have consequences. No, like thought forms, egregores have consequences, and actually building those into, let's say, detrimental negative spaces is not the best. It's just not the best for us. And so I don't know, like I said, I don't know the answers here, but I do know that there's something happening where we did have a clapback. And again, go double check my timeline. Make sure I'm accurate on this. Like I said, in 1980, I was still little. So I can only go from my earliest formative type memories, to kind of put some of these pieces together and make some sense of this. So I could be way off here, but that's the point. That's the point of talking to each other and considering what is or isn't. And that's why we're here. What's up, guys? I hope everybody's well tonight. I see in the chat. Thanks for being cool and chill to each other. I appreciate it very much. Shout out an old buddy, Frank, there. I guess Frank's in the chat. Frank's back. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I got some stuff to get to in a sec. And anything else to add, James? And I'll dive into what we got.
Yeah, I do think it may have gone on into the late 80s. That time frame. I could be wrong, but just given how I'm pretty sure Beetlejuice is pretty popular. I know Men in Black was hugely popular. And those are both, I think, 88, 89, right around there. But I do remember after that, for a while, I guess, I think there's probably always been like one movie here or there, like Independence Day. I think that was like 90s. But that's also more Hollywood sci-fi action fictionalized kind of thing than what we hear obviously from reports of people that have had experiences. But and even Beetlejuice is I'd argue it's pretty far out there from what people mostly experience usually. But so again, that fictionalization, that dramatization of all these topics that some people consider to be real, these phenomenon, definitely did start around that time. And I mean, even if things did calm down for a little while, they came back definitely with a vengeance the last 10 years or so. And I mean, like we keep mentioning Stranger Things, I think that whether you watched it or not, practically everybody knows of that show at the very least, of the general sort of feel of that show based on the title and the promotional artwork and all that you see advertisements for all the time, everywhere.
Yeah. Well said. All that. And it is, like I said, it is coming back. And here's actually, it fits right into what you're describing here. So this is again, this stuff, these ideas are touched on in the write-up. If you guys don't check out the Troubled Minds newsletter, you should. Like, I don't plug it a lot, but it's got some really good stuff on there. Hundreds of articles going back for years, literally years at this point. And every time I do a show, I have the write-up. So you can kind of, if you want to prep yourself beforehand and see what it is, it comes out before the show. And then you can kind of have an idea of what you want to talk about or call about, or, fact check me or whatever. Like I'm not a journalist. I'm not trying to change the world in any way like that. I'm trying to look at it differently for myself and then talk about it amongst amazing people, which is you. But this came up as part of it. Do check out the Troubled Minds newsletter, troubledminds.org, button on top, click it. Can't miss it. But as James was saying, and this is part of what is in there. So skepticism as sort of a banishing ritual of these ideas in the zeitgeist, right? And nostalgia as sort of an invocation to bring this back. It's like two sides of the same coin in this, I don't know, like eternal tug of war in terms of where we came from, where we're heading, and then back to where we came from, right? It's sort of the Sisyphus or Prometheus stealing fire from the gods and then being punished for it in that capacity. I mean, it's a little bit weird, but also think of it this way. So banishing rituals. And so think of that term as the thing that knocked down these ideas of that surge in the early to mid 80s, late 70s, early mid 80s of, again, think about the cultural space. Star Wars, as Joe said earlier, of course, was kind of the space opera with the force and all the weird stuff.
And I guess you could even say that maybe it kind of died with Return of the Jedi in maybe 1986, somewhere in that capacity, right? But I mean, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Poltergeist, Exorcist back to the late 70s. And then it swung into this space of just this massive high strangeness where suddenly that got tamped down at the end of the 80s, early 90s. And then as part of the thesis here, the idea, the X-Files come, and it's, some people have suggested the X-Files in particular, it was disclosure. Like this was an actual disclosure happening right there on television in front of our very eyes. I don't know if I believe that, but I do believe that it certainly put high strangeness in a box. Okay. The Mulder, the Scully effect, the archetypes of the weirdo wanderer of intuition, and then the scientist, which is good. But clearly anybody who's lived any amount of life recognizes that there's more than just two archetypes in the world. And so we don't have to box these ideas into an X-Files episode, okay? That's the thing. That's the point. And so think of it this way to make the case. This banishing ritual of the mid-'80s, early 90s, okay, where it stopped being okay to talk about this stuff or to think about this stuff, and it was reflected in culture very much. Think of what was it? Independence Day. Was that 96? What year was that? But basically it had aliens, but it had this comedy flair to it. Remember Will Smith, Welcome to Earth, and he like punches the alien, like that's going to knock it out or something, which is ridiculous. And, it's kind of got some comedy punch in there. But the point is that, think of it this way, a lesser banishing ritual of the zeitgeist. Again, nostalgia is as invocation, but this skepticism as this larger ritual to criticize and ridicule ideas. You see, it has been throughout history, this push and pull of everything, of considering even faith. And like I said, I'm not, me, I'm not a very religious guy, but I do think that there's a ton of wisdom to be had from all the faiths of the world. So anyway, so it's like this. So the principle is universal. Focused intention plus symbolic action can clear a space of unwanted presence. This isn't superstition. Ask anyone who worked with this stuff. It works. Here's the thought experiment, though. What if institutional skepticism was a civilization scale banishing ritual we didn't recognize as a ritual because we called it reason, because we called it common sense, because we named it. We looked it in the eye and we said, this is returning to sanity. And yet here we are in 2026 with all that said and done. And I'm not so sure we return to any level of sanity. That's it. That's what I know. But again, lots of stuff here. And maybe this, the skeptic movement, and interestingly, I'll come back to that. But maybe the flashpoint in the skeptic movement was this $1 million paranormal challenge. Sort of that working, that invocation, that actual lesser banishing ritual of these ideas from the space. Like, look, this is money. Like, people want money. And if you can't prove any of this, then none of this is real. I mean, it's a fair point, but also it's, kind of a little bit gamed. You can game this. It's a little straw man-y. It's, again, you'd have to see the protocols of testing. That's a lot. Okay. But that's the point. That's the whole point. If this was sort of a flashpoint, an inflection point in that working to get rid of these ideas out of the zeitgeist and bring us back to science, bring us back to consensus reality, or, cooking the books at the stock market, the economy, just print more money, right? I mean, that magic has never changed, but you get my point. Consensus reality is as farcical as this. And this other conversation about high strangeness, it's just that, we have to eat. We have to live in this system. But yeah, okay, so got some other stuff to get to. Anything to add to that, James? I see you guys in the chat. Thanks for the kind words. And yeah, there's a lot here. Now I'm going to get back to the skeptics, the skeptic movement as part of this conversation, because I think it's important.
Yeah, so Independence Day did come out in 96, in the summer of 96.
Nice.
So that's fascinating. And it's funny, I'm just thinking back to when I was a kid and growing up. I didn't hear anyone talking about how the topics in the X-Files could be real until many years later. And so at the time it very much was. If I could talk, it was framed in from everyone I talked to as that fictional show, that completely made up fictional show that is doing so well. So and of course I wondered about things when I saw it because of my own experiences, but yeah, so I think that's true. And it's still, even today, it's still, there's so much that is fiction that is, it's the taboo is sort of split. There's a lot of people that, yes, they're open to talk about these things, but there's still a lot of people that no, they're not. And so it's still there. It just may have shifted, or as you said, maybe fractured as well since then.
Yeah, exactly. And the other part of this too, which sticks in my brain, and think of it this way, right? Like to the materialists, they're like, really, like, why would you go to a UFO conference, or why would you go to one of those woo-woo conferences where they, do the spirit healing or the Reiki or whatever, right? Like, why? Oh my goodness, why would you do that? Fine, that's cool. I get it. I get why you wouldn't want to do that. Okay, I've been to some of those. They're interesting. Like, weird and interesting. I mean, bizarre. Interesting. Okay. All that fits, and they're all a little different, but so I can imagine the curiosity or the oddity or, kind of meeting kindred spirits in a space like that. But then imagine this, imagine like this skeptic movement where now these are, these articles are linked in the description, and these are entire conference rooms filled full of people that are deeming themselves skeptics. Like, skeptics of what exactly? Like, this becomes the thing, right? And it's a weird paradigm when you think about the conversations and how this fits into the UFO field, the UFO community, and then the other fractals at large. The psi community, or whatever interest groups or niches they have or do. But think of it this way: like, it's so strange to me. Like, you would go to a skeptic conference. Like, what does that even mean? Like, you show up so they can go, ghosts aren't real. And everybody claps. You know what I mean? Let's do some experiments to prove they're not. Let's call some ghosts. Ghosts, are you there? You know what I mean? Of course, I'm making a parody of this, but my point is, like, imagine calling yourself a skeptic. Like, and that's, a core basis of your identity. I mean, that's not the way science works at all. Science is like, hey, I'm probably wrong about this, but let's try it. Let's do the scientific method and put everything out and clean all the things and make it so we can replicate this and try it. That's what science is. It's not a skeptic movement, but it's weird that we had sort of that, late 1800s, early 1900s of the spiritualism movement kind of coming in. And again, these are the ebbs and flows of these ideas that I'm talking about. And at some point I should kind of put together maybe a timeline of this, where we can see over the centuries where maybe this type of stuff does ebb and flow, come and go. And maybe it has nothing to do with what we believe in the moment. Maybe there's something else out there kind of controlling, the let's call it the paranormal zeitgeist, or the high strangeness zeitgeist, for lack of a better term. But maybe there's something else controlling these ideas in a particular moment. I don't know. Look, we got about 10 minutes left. If you guys want to jump in here, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Am I off? Am I wrong? Yeah, probably. Like, that's my whole premise in being here. I'm kind of looking at the world a little differently and trying to figure things out. And or not. Again, phone number's up, 702-957-1037. You can click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Anything to add, James, on the skeptic movement? Did you ever find yourself at a skeptic conference and wondered what the hell you were doing there?
Well, I think another important aspect to this is there is from what I've heard, there's the actual idea of a skeptic which is supposed to be someone that just questions everything, and not in a disrespectful or dismissive way, just literally questions and looks into everything. And then what the modern sort of the other idea of a skeptic, which is none of these things, none of this can be real because I haven't experienced it, and so it's not real. And sort of the whole debunker angle of everything. So that's an important distinction there. And, it's just, but then that word is used for sort of both by a lot of people, both people that are, do say nothing paranormal or anomalous is real, and people that say that have experiences that say it is real. So there's as we always talk about words being complicated, they're complicated in more ways than one. And sometimes the same word can be used for two different things that are somewhat related, but only barely.
Yeah, yeah. And it's weird too. So you know this, James. I know you follow some of this discourse online, where you have the believers, the people who are true believers of all of the things. They might be UFO experiencers, they might be lifelong enthusiasts that have whatever that reality anchor is that makes them lock in and say, well, you know what, this stuff is real. And if somebody kind of refutes that, it's a fight, right? It's like people kind of, this is the hill I'll die on type stuff. And there is the believer aspect of that, but there's also the skeptic aspect of that. And I've never understood the fascination of a skeptic kind of wading into a believer space and being like, nah, it's not real. I mean, it's intentionally antagonistic, and there's a zillion things you could be interested in and go spend your time on. I mean, it just seems strange to me that whole aspect of that fight in the argument. I mean, you could do it, and people do it, and it is, I mean, it's even popular. Like, again, the skeptic movement. Links are in the description if you don't believe me. This is a thing. There are skeptic conferences. Like what's that guy? The Skeptoid. There's a Michael Shermer guy. Some of these people that are just like poo-pooing on everything. It's kind of taking just the scientific backbone bases of all the ideas and being like, well, science hasn't really proved any of that, so none of that's real. Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, right. You win. Okay. Now let's consider what science doesn't know. Oh no, we can, that's where we draw the lines. It's just so silly. Like, this stuff is so silly to me, where people want to argue and fight about these things. And to me, there's nothing to argue and fight about. It's like, let's see what the next 5 or 10 years brings. Again, as Joe said earlier, we're on the cusp of a singularity here with the AI acceleration and all this stuff. It's wild what may happen, what may come to pass in our lifetimes. God willing, we have another day. Okay. Again, tomorrow's not yours till you earn it, till you're here for it. But you get my meaning, right? It's weird to me how you would define yourself as a poo-poo on everything and then stomp around like you're superior and, try and ruffle the feathers of people that believe things. And it's to me like walking into a church and just trying to ruffle the feathers and tell everybody God's not real. It's like, I mean, like at some point you're just like an antagonist. I mean, we had a thing kind of happen recently about that. I won't even bring up the dude's name, but I mean, not exactly that, but go into a church and try and ruffle people's feathers. It seems like, I don't know, like you're desperate for attention, right? That's what it seems like to me. Anyway, enough on that, but you get my point when I'm talking about this skeptic movement. I mean, we need welders, quilting is nice this time of year. You know what I mean? Like, okay, skeptic if you like. Anyway, anything on that, Jim? Sorry for my little rant, but yeah.
No, it's okay. I'm trying not to rant myself because of my own biases. But yeah, and I've even heard, I think it was Shermer, might have been someone else, Michael Shermer. There was someone, a well-known scientist who had an experience in their own, where they were staying, with the radio and their wife. It was their wife's father's radio, and they were getting ready to get married. And this radio that belonged to the grandfather, I think it was either the father or the grandfather, started playing when it was in a drawer, unplugged, no batteries. And the scientist had this experience and couldn't explain it. But after that, eventually, he still stuck to his whole sort of skeptical, none of this stuff can really be what we think it is, sort of skeptical position on things, which to me just cracks me up because I just can't do that. And that's just me. I'm not saying that I'm right or wrong to do it that way, but it does crack me up when I hear things like that. And every once in a while, when I'm doing research for my own show and I'm looking for true stories, I'll find a post from someone who will say, I never believed in any of this. I've always been a very scientific person. And then they'll go on to describe this anomalous experience. And I'm not saying that anyone has to believe it's real or not. I'm just saying I have seen that pattern before in my research, and it does happen.
Yeah, because people don't want to just be like crazy. Like, oh, this guy's crazy, right? Look, I know very well that you could, go through and pull up some things I've said in the past and make the case that I'm insane. I also promise you I'm not. I'm not. I am open-minded and curious about what science has yet to discover. That's it. I look at the past and consider that there's so many stories that kind of fit together out of time and out of space, geographically, temporally, that make sense. That how come everybody spotted all these things very similar the world over, back to the dawn of humanity. I think there's something there. I think there's something that we're missing. And that's why I talk about this. That's why I think about this. And that's why these ideas kind of get thrown into this blender that I like to call troubled minds, spinning the maybe juice. And it's, again, some people would think this conversation is frivolous, is ridiculous, is not worth the time. Fine. Go find a politics show. Whatever. But we all sort of make our decisions on what we think is important. And to me, the important things are not the prevailing narratives, the narratives that have not been sniffed out yet. And I think there's some here. I think there's actually something here. If I could put my finger on it, I'd just tell you succinctly, but I can't. And so I just go with my intuition. I go with my passion. I go with my experience. I go with what we've got. And to be honest, what we've built over many years here is a very beautiful thing. So thank you all for contributing and being cool and chill in the chat and nice to each other and all the stuff, supporting the show and all that. I appreciate it very much. A couple minutes left. If you got anything to add, James, to any of this, are we going to meet at the next Skeptics show in Vegas? What do you think?
Yeah, sounds like a lot of fun. Let's see how long we last in there. This has me thinking about something I've been talking about this here and there over the last couple of years. I think we all have our own abilities and interests and things, but the mainstream media narratives and all that, they want us focused on, what they want us focused on. But we don't have to do that. And we can't all have the same interest in each other's different things. And that should be okay. The interest in the paranormal or anomalous, that should be fine. And people should be able to leave that alone if it's not their thing. And that's fine if that's not their thing. I don't think any topic, as long as it's not hurting anyone, I don't think any topic should be completely ever just canceled out, because you never know what we'll figure out and looking into all these things.
Yeah, well said, all that. And to close out my idea too. So if there was a working, with this, this skeptic movement and the $1 million paranormal challenge that kind of ran off these ideas from the zeitgeist for some amount of time, then here's the interesting part. Okay. So every magical tradition, when it comes to banishing ideas, spirits, whatever this happens to be, it's not something that's one and done, because it's an idea, maybe, but there are multiple ideas, as there are multiple spirits conceptually, whether you believe it or not. So in the sense of banishing these ideas from the zeitgeist eternally, you have to keep doing these workings. And this individual died in, I don't know what year, the $1 million thing, this CSI, the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, they became mostly irrelevant and reformed into something else. And so I wonder, right? I do wonder if there were elements in play that were actually running these ideas from the zeitgeist proper. And when they stopped, it started flooding back. And that's in the write-up. That's all in the write-up. If you guys want to check that out, I do encourage it. Troubled Minds newsletter. That's it. That's what I got. That's what I got. That's why I do 2-hour shows, because a third hour of this would be excruciating for all of us. And thanks for staying up late. Thanks for hanging out. Anything to add, James? Let's wrap this up.
Just thank you for having me as always, and looking forward to the next show.
You were the best. You know him, you love him. SalsidoParanormal.com, SALSIDO Paranormal.com, the glue of the show, the paranormal expert of Troubled Minds, and a refreshing look at all the ways coming from James. That's the point. Let's talk to each other. Let's consider things we haven't yet. And you can do that by going and listening to his podcast, buying his books, help our friends, troubledminds.org/friends. If you want to help us directly, spread the word. Let people know a conversation is happening when we're not going to tell you who to vote for. This is not political. I know. Politics is easy, right? You get a take, you go, meh, and then you say it loudly and proudly and share your ignorance with everybody, and everybody loves it. That's it.
I'm not interested in that. I'll share my ignorance another way, thanks. It's called Troubled Minds. That's that. Again, blah, 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 all the things, all the places. Help our friends. That's exactly it. troubledminds.org/friends. And we are going to finish with the Midnight Stargate Ritual, but first I'm going to kill the stream. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys on Sunday night, God willing, and then Tuesday night we have a special show coming up with a friend, James, and a friend, you know her as La Mosfina. We'll be talking about John Lennon and the number 9, and so that leaves the Sunday show as to be determined. So we'll see you on Sunday night, God willing. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being part of this. Michael Strange out from the streams, but I'm going to play some additional music. Hang tight.